Hi, I'm Owen, the host of the Australian Finance Podcast. This podcast is proudly sponsored by BetaShares, one of the leading providers of ETFs here in Australia. Serving thousands of financial advisors and over 1 million investors, BetaShares manages tens of billions of dollars on behalf of investors right across the country. I'm proud to partner with BetaShares on the Australian Finance Podcast, Australia's premier financial podcast, because there is great alignment in the long-term philosophy shared by both businesses. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Australian Finance Podcast. Gemma, welcome to this episode of the Australian Finance Podcast.
Great to be back.
It always is good to chat. We're recording interstate. So last week we were in Sydney together. We had a bit of an investor meet up there. It was just good to chat with everyone. And now you're back in your home state of Queensland, and I'm back in mine, which is Vic. And it's just good to start these shows. We're going to answer some questions about financial advice, about super, about getting started investing. We're going to answer those today. But I always like to start with you. It's just a bit of a catch up. Like, what have you been working on? Do you have any client stories or things from the week that you can share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually had a really interesting call this morning that I was nerding out on and getting very excited. Had to actually apologize halfway through the call for repeating how cool and exciting it was, that their situation. But so for those who aren't aware, we're doing like 15-minute chats where we talk to people about, do they need financial advice? Is there a free course or resource that they could be using? So this person in our community booked in, and they had recently been paid out on their total and permanent disability insurance in their super fund. So that means they were deemed that they won't work again due to a medical or a injury. And so their insurance paid out, and it paid the lump sum of insurance into the super fund, which is standard what happens, and it just sits there. So the go-to for a lot of people that I see is to pull that out and either invest it or put it in cash, put it in their bank account. But it's so important to actually know all of your options. So I'm so impressed that this person reached out, and they were kind of thinking along those lines that they would take it out of super and put it in a bank account, see what interest they could earn, and that interest would help them, fund their lifestyle. They have a wife that's still working, but it would be, a bit of help to have that income come in. So we talked about all of the different options, and it was really hard not to cross the line with advice. My point was going through all of the options was to really show you need financial advice, and there is so many ways that so many opportunities you have right now. Like off the top of my head, I thought of like 6 different things that he could really be doing to set himself up for life with this money. So the whole point of the conversation was there is so much value in you getting financial advice, because the advisor is really going to look at all of these scenarios and look at which one's going to work for you. They're going to think of even more because they're going to have all of the resources. I'm just like on the fly. But yeah, the point was, wait, don't do anything until you can get advice. And that advice is going to be so worthwhile for them to make sure that, one, they are being tax effective, but they're also doing everything they can with this money, because, he might not work again. And the purpose of this money is to set yourself up and make sure you're financially okay. So he is going to go back to his super fund, or who paid the insurance, because often there's a financial planning benefit in some insurance policies, which means they'll pay a certain amount towards going to financial advice, or they might even have it in-house for free. So he wasn't aware of that. So I've sent him back to find out if he's got any of that, if he has one of those benefits. And I'm, in the meantime, going to have a look at the planners that we, refer to, all of that kind of thing, and see who will be a good match. And he'll come back to me and we will make sure he gets the advice that he needs.
That's fantastic. It's really good. And it's really good of you. So thanks for doing that. But it's also really good of him to reach out and get help, because, there's a few big kind of, we call them windfalls, but that is almost the wrong term in this regard, in my opinion. It's inheritances and like a sale of a business, TPD claims, life insurance payouts. There's so many different reasons that you would get a windfall, as they say, of money. Mm-hmm. And the cost of advice may be a few $1,000s, but as we're about to talk about, because we had a question about this, and we'll bring it up in just a few moments. The cost of advice is hard to quantify, except when you have an amount of money like that. It's so important to get advice, because there's so many reasons that it can help you. There was a comment that we received for we had a question sent to us a few weeks ago about A woman who was a single mom was trying to put their child through a private school because of special needs, not necessarily like we don't know the exact circumstances, like if it was a disability, it could have been something else. But they did come in and say, we kind of need to do this for more focus on the child. And we riffed on that and how someone could afford to pay for the child's education because private school is very expensive. But we had someone write in and offer some support. So this person who went under the name of Private School or NAR, they said this, and I'll quote, replying to the private school question from the Friday the 14th podcast, former primary school teacher. The main reason why private school students tend to outperform public school students in tests is mainly due to socioeconomic advantages. That is, not the teaching quality, and you can see this in the PISA report, that's PISA. To save money, you could consider approaching other schools and explaining your concerns, and they might take your child in as an out-of-area enrollment. I've seen some parents put another address, such as their parents' address, in secret so that they could change local public schools. Something to consider because we don't want you paying excessive school fees for private schooling in the hope that it might be better. It's not guaranteed. End comment. I think that's a great piece of wisdom there, Gem. There's a few things in there, but one of the things I'll say is that in a lot of the research that I've done over the years for private school versus public school, there is a lot of data that suggests that once you exclude the benefit of someone effectively having money, which is a real thing, the actual academic outcomes, it's not clear. And so a lot of parents try really hard to pay a lot, hundreds of thousands of dollars in some instances to send their child to a private school in the expectation that the academic outcome is better. And we've dived into this many times on the podcast, but this person does rightly point out that a lot of the data doesn't really suggest that. There is actually some of the data that I've found, Gem, is that people that attend private schools do tend to get paid more. And that's that socioeconomic benefit where, they say it's like about who you know, not what you know. It actually does play out in reality where people that do, on average, people that attend private schools do tend to earn a little bit more per hour. But if you actually adjust for a bunch of different factors that are, and you just focus on the education, I don't think it's black and white. Like, I don't think, as an investor myself, I don't know if the ROI is there. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so this is a tricky one. And last week when we went through it, we were also talking about, right, then if she's very comfortable with that, she can fit it in a budget, like how she actually saves for it and ways to maybe get discounts with the school. But yeah, like I went to public school and I think I turned out right. Well, debatable. But my children go to a public school, but my son's ADHD and autistic, and very early on, my ex-husband and I were exploring school options because we didn't think, I just assumed that he probably wouldn't fit in the local primary school system. And it wasn't until we met with like a few schools and looked at them that we actually worked out that he was going to get more support and more of the things that we needed for him from the local public school, which is the one that he goes to now, and they've been amazing. So I love that this person was like, oh, talk to some different schools, because we didn't think about that. I was kind of like, well, how do you pay for the private? But yeah, maybe there is actually, maybe it's not your local public, but maybe there's another one that actually ticks all the boxes. Because I remember being shocked at, like, first child, you haven't looked into it, but shocked at the support that our local public school had for kids like Max. So
yeah, great. Okay, well, it was a great piece of feedback. And if you do hear of if anyone's listening to this, you're a teacher, support worker, someone in the community, and you do have insights to share, we would really appreciate it. If you think we made a mistake, or if you think there's something that we could answer better, or a resource that we haven't found, just write into us. Use the same link that you would to ask a question, just to give us that feedback. And we would love to hear your insights. Beryl Streep, that's like Meryl Streep, but with a B. Beryl Streep wrote in, and it's quite a long question. And I might I'll go through it a little bit. So this was a question from, I think it was sent in last week, but we didn't answer it last week, and we wanted to put a bit more time into this. And this relates to what we spoke about in both of the previous two things we just mentioned, being the financial advice and a parent. I'm a single mom with 2 kids, and I'm not in a good financial position. Although I earn pretty good money, I desperately want to see a financial advisor, but don't have any savings due to having about $40,000 of debt that I need to pay off ASAP. They say, that's made up of $25,000 of tax debt that was incurred because I lost my contracting job last year, and because I pay provisional tax, it's based on money that I didn't earn while I wasn't working. The rest is other debt because I got behind in school fees and body corporate from my apartment. My questions are, do financial planning fees have to be paid up front, or can you pay the fees over a year? If my finances aren't complex and I'm just needing a holistic once-off plan based on my personal circumstances, can I just get a plan in one go, or do I have to keep going back multiple times? I have all of the areas on my financial wish list ready to go, and I want to do a deep dive into each of the areas and get a 5 to 10 year plan that I can commit to. What approximately should I be looking at paying for this level of financial advice, and how can I get help where I can pay off the fees monthly instead of upfront? So there's a lot of questions in here, Gem.
That's a lot. Yeah.
There is a lot. Maybe I will quickly just ask you, because we did an episode on this last year. Can you, just for people that aren't aware, can you just explain the difference in a role between a money coach, financial advisor, and debt counselor? 3 different roles, just really quickly before we answer this question.
Yeah. So with this client, with this person, I actually saw theirs come in and we didn't have it allocated for the last episode. So I just reached out to them personally and was like, hey, money coaching might be an option. Let's have a chat. But yes, I think it's very good that we still go through this. So there is different levels, and a lot of time people think that financial advice is the only option, and it might actually be that this person isn't. So they're looking for a 5 to 10 year plan, but it might be that the things that they want in there, the debt, the cash flow things, don't actually need to, won't be covered in, doesn't need to be done by a financial planner. So there's debt counselling. So if you are eligible for, based on your income, in Australia, we have free debt counselling services provided by, what are they? The National Debt Helpline. Yep. There's Salvation Armies, those type of things. So I'd be reaching out to them because they are, and to see if you're eligible, because they're going to look at if they can help you with cash flow, a debt plan, all of that stuff, and making sure that you're not going to get back in this position, just creating some great habits. So if you're eligible for debt counselling, that would be a great starting point. The other spectrum is financial advice, but sitting in the middle is money coaching. And as you said, there's a whole episode on that. But where money coaching could help is, it's not financial advice, so it's not product related. We're not going to put together an investment strategy for you. It's more about the behavioral things, the day-to-day. How do you manage your cash flow, your bank accounts? What debts do you have? How do you prioritize them? Education around those types of things, all the foundations. And I think in this, from the stuff that we know about this person, I think money coaching would actually be the place for them to start. And that's going to be, maybe $500 kind of mark from most of the coaches that I know for a one-off. And you could probably talk to your coach about having a package where it's discounted and you have that accountability, the catch up, coaches can kind of tailor their package to however, and then you're paying installments as well. I think a coach is going to be a lot more flexible than what an advice firm would be, but the coach isn't going to give you investment strategies, look at your superannuation, recommend different products. They're going to talk to you about the debt, the cash flow, all of that kind of stuff. So I think that is where this person's going to sit. And then, as we talked about, the other scale is financial advice, and that's going to absolutely cover off the debt, but they're going to be looking at insurance, superannuation, all of the holistic stuff, which is so important. But honestly, I don't see many advice firms being able to pay, to provide advice for under 5,000 kind of starting point at the moment. And I just don't know if that is actually going to suit this person. But I would encourage them to talk to a few advisors and ask all of these questions, because every advice firm and every advisor is going to have a different service offering, fee, and way that they work with clients. So it's you may find some an advice firm that has an upfront fee, but then installments for the rest, or a bit of both. The ones that I've worked in has always been upfront. But yeah, you'd need to speak to a few different advisors, but also talk to them about the value in it, because potentially you might get most of your needs met from money coaching, which is going to be significantly less, or you might actually get it all sorted with the National Debt Helpline. which would be great.
I'd call it National Debt Helpline because there's something here which I'll say is that if you've got an ATO debt, if you've got a good accountant on your side, the accountant will go into bat for you and they will effectively say, hey, let's turn that $40,000 debt into a payment plan that is manageable. And it's a negotiation between you / the accountant and the ATO. And the ATO, people have a kind of, I think, I don't know, boogeyman vibe about the ATO. But you got to think about it from the ATO's perspective. They just want you to pay the debt. And if you can only pay X, and that's realistic, then that's what they want you to do. They don't want to just come out and send you bankrupt because that's not good for anyone.
Yeah,
so,
and just be proactive with it. It's like dealing with your bank. Like just talk to them like they're human beings, right? And make a payment plan. Like I've had clients that have come to me and had payment plans that were on 0% interest. Some of them have been higher, but either way, they just had this regular payment plan and we're negotiating and dealing with them. You just can't head in the sand, which I love that this person isn't. They're being really proactive and going, what can I do? And those are the three things. And if I was going to start anywhere, I would be starting with the National Debt Helpline kind of thing to see if you're eligible. If you're not, then talk to a money coach, talk to a couple, maybe three again, and see what their fees are, see how you work together, make an informed decision if that's for you, and then also be doing the same with an advisor. So it's not just go to the one, whatever they say, let's go. It's you're going to have to look at each of those options and really decide which one fits.
I did, I don't want to name the advisor just in case I did get this wrong, but I caught up with someone recently because we have, like, as you were just alluding to before, we have, if you're a member of ours or if you've invested with us, you can access a free call service inside your Rask account where you can actually just jump on a free call with Gemma, myself, or someone in the team. Soon there'll be more people in there. And you can just get some general guidance on where to go. And someone did jump on a call with me recently and they went to a financial advisor a few years ago who did offer a monthly installment. There was no upfront. So just speak to them. Just go and reach out. I put an email out over the weekend and some people hopefully read it. But in a lot of our research, like you and I, Gemma, and what we've been working on behind the scenes over the last few months is it is really hard to get financial advice for less than quite a few $1,000s. There is, however, one way that you may be able to recoup some of that cost or at least offset it. And that's potentially your super fund may be able to cover some of the financial advice. It's a bit hard for us to say exactly how much because they're all different and they've all interpreted it in different ways. But there is potential that your super fund, if you're getting advice that relates to your super and to your insurance inside super, there is scope. Some of the fee that you might pay to the financial advisor may be able to be paid from the super fund. So that can then ease the burden on your cash flow in the short term. But best bet, reach out to people, speak to people, call the advisor that you want to speak to and just say, hey, am I in your range or is there anyone you know that you would recommend for my particular situation? Great question. Next question comes from Tim Ferriss Wheel. Big fan of the Tim Ferriss podcast, I must say. So I like this one. I have 15K of rollover post-tax super contributions limits, which will expire this year. There's a lot of words in there, so I took that slow. We'll come back to that. Could it be a handy strategy to get a personal loan to dump into super to claim the tax benefit, then use the return to pay off the loan as a high tax bracket earner? So let's just step back a bit. There are a few different ways to put money from your bank account into superannuation. One of those is you just put money in and you just go, here you go, super fund, take that. Another way is you can put money in and claim a tax deduction up to a certain limit. And this person is effectively saying, I think I've got a bit of my limit left. Is that a worthwhile idea? Now, they've kind of spiced it up a bit, Gem, and they've said, we're also I could probably get a personal loan. Have you seen that done before? General thoughts? Obviously, we can only speak generally on the show.
I have seen people want to maximize. So what they're referring to is there's a 5-year rolling period and 15,000 is about to drop off that 5-year rolling period because it's rolling forwards. So they're thinking, should I quickly get that in before I lose the ability to put that in? So I know that people consider, it's very common for people to take debt to invest. We do it with investment properties, normal properties, and we do it with shares. So it's not unheard of, but I have a few concerns here, but mainly questions that they need to kind of be considering. Like a personal loan, I haven't seen them low interest rates for a very long time. Like that would be 8 to 15% interest.
It's a lot of interest.
Yeah, and so my questions would be, like, if they were planning to do that, but they could pay that loan back within 3 months, or they were getting a bonus like just after the new financial year, and they were like, it would be gone. Like maybe it makes sense, but I'm kind of thinking, well, how long are you going to be repaying that loan, and at what interest rate, and how much actually was the tax benefit, which depends on your income. Are you actually comfortable with debt? Do you want the commitment of it? There's so many things that I'm kind of going to more cons than benefits, even when you get a tax benefit. But like maybe it's just you draw a line in the sand, you go, right, well, I missed out on that 15, but I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen again. I'm going to proactively salary sacrifice each year. And yeah, I don't want someone to make a rash decision to go into debt because there's this timeline. Yeah, this one makes me nervous.
Yeah, it does for me too. And it's probably ultimately comes back to the interest component. They did say, we don't know them and we can't give personal advice on the show. But if you think about it, if you took say a $15,000 personal loan, then you put that money straight into super, you claim a tax deduction for it. So let's say 40% if they're on the highest tax bracket, roughly. That's quite a substantial like deduction on your personal tax and a refund that would come back to you, but you'd still be left with some component that you still need to pay out of your own money. Now that may be something to keep in mind, but that's where the cash flow element comes in. You're effectively receiving cash, then putting it in, then getting a tax return, then paying off the loan, but you'll still be left with something at the end. And that's just where it comes back to personal preference.
And we need to look at the net tax benefit because yes, it's going to be in their pocket up to that 40% in that example. But the super fund's going to tax it at 15 to 30. So yes, you might feel like you're getting a big chunk back, but some of that contribution got taxed. You need to look at the net benefit. But yeah, I'd be thinking, well, if I do this, how long is it going to take me to pay off that $15,000 loan, even with the tax return coming in? And am I comfortable with debt? I personally, and what's your age? You know, like, I personally wouldn't, there wouldn't be very many scenarios that I would do that, but they should get advice.
Yeah, they should.
And run some numbers. But look at the interest that you're going to pay and the tax saving. And even if things work in numbers, it doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do from a cash flow perspective, a lifestyle perspective, a sleep at night. Yeah, exactly. So the numbers can look good, but that doesn't mean that that's what you need to do.
Yeah, what's good in a spreadsheet isn't always good in real life. And particularly for folks that potentially are still a long way from retirement, you might have more opportunities to put extra in as you get closer to retirement age. Barney Stinson, which sounds like something from The Simpsons, great name, writes in and says...
No, that's How I Met Your Mother.
It is too. How did I get that wrong? Yeah.
It's one of my favorite TV shows.
Oh, yes. How did I get that wrong? Of course.
It's Barney.
Yes. Hey, guys, I'm very new to investing and wanted to know your thoughts on platforms to start with. I'm a CommBank customer, but I am debating using CommSec or an app like Perla. Any general financial advice would be greatly appreciated. Yeah, we can only speak generally, but when we talk about brokers, there is a document. You can go and read the terms and conditions and all that sort of stuff, view the pricing page, visit the product disclosure statement or PDS and those types of things as well. We would encourage you to do. Final just disclosure here, Perla is a sponsor of the show, has been for many years. So this is the thing that really gets people. They get all excited. They listen to the podcast and we're all ready to go. We're at the start line and they're like, hold on a second. What do I actually need to do this? And then they go, oh, now I need to pick from all these brokers and there's all these terms I don't understand. I just want to buy ETFs. I just want to buy shares. What do I actually do to start? And a lot of people get stuck here, Gem, because they're just stuck in analysis paralysis. There's got to be at least 50 different brokers to choose from, not just the two that they were referring to here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's where I see people get stuck as well. They're like, I'm ready to invest. I've worked it into my cash flow, but they get stuck with that. And often they actually know the share or the ETF that they want, but they're just stuck on the platform because there's so many. So I thought you would probably have better insights into this one, but I was like, well, you would compare the features, but I was more thinking you just get started.
Yes, yeah.
Stop overthinking it and just pick one.
Yeah. So if we think about the analogy of like one-way doors, a doorway that you can't come back from as quickly as you go through, those some of the big financial decisions you make in your life. Things like, should I put $500,000 that I just inherited straight into super? Let's pause a
Where you
minute.
can't get it.
You can't come back from that. Or should I buy this investment property? Because if you sell it, there's going to be costs. Like those big decisions, take it slow. But when there's really no consequences from coming back through, I say just give it a shot. And so, like, for example, you could open a ComSec account, a Perla account, a Raise account, a Sharesies account, a Stake account. I could just keep going on and on and on. You could open all of them and it still wouldn't cost you anything. And so you could just open them, get a feel for the platform if you like to use it or not. And some of them have like $20 like as an incentive, or someone can refer you. It can get $10 already in your account. And that way you can get a feel of what it looks like. And if you're just starting out, what Kate and I had said on the podcast for many years is always, start now and start small. And the good thing about brokerage accounts is many of those that I just mentioned have options where you can invest 20 or $50, depending on your budget. You could invest 500. I would just say, just get a sense of the platforms, what they are, how they feel when you use them. All of the platforms that I just mentioned, I'll try and remember what I just said: ComSec, Perla, Sharesies, Raise, Stake, even Self-Wealth. All of those platforms I just mentioned, they're all highly regulated. So they're all like the government, ASIC, a regulator, is looking at them constantly. They've all got licenses. Some of them have different structures where you own the shares. Some of them are custodial models. Beta Shares Direct, also a sponsor of the show, all have different terms and conditions and different pricing and features. But just look at what suits you. Like for me, Gem, a big part of the way I like to invest, as you know, is like just automate things, just make things really easy. And there's a lot of automation in some of them now. I also don't need all the widgets. So by that I mean, like some of the platforms are designed for people that want to be quote unquote traders or like actively involved in their brokerage account every day. That used to be me. I'm not that guy anymore. I love investing and I love researching companies and ETFs, but I know I don't need to log into my brokerage account to do that. I use a platform for people that are familiar. I use a platform called Ticker, TIKR.com. It doesn't trade stocks for you. It doesn't do any of that. It's just for the research. But I use my brokerage account just for trading, and I use Perla for my little sister because it's easy on her birthday. I can just send money via PayID and it's automatically invested. So it really is just what you want to, get used to and comfortable with.
Yeah, I totally agree. I guess the big question would be how much are you going to invest and how often? Because some of them are brokerage accounts where you might have to have a minimum 100 or 500 or 1,000, whereas some of them are micro investing. So I think really the decision you need to make is, are you micro investing and do you want it automated? And look for one that's got that feature, or are you going to be doing parcels of over 1,000, whatever, and make sure they do that. That's pretty much it. But I like your analogy of the door because I say to people, like, what suits you right now while you're learning about investing might be very different down the track. And it doesn't mean that you are committed to always being with that one. Like they're popping up all the time. One might be better down the track. You can either sell the shares, you might be able to transfer them, or you could just keep it there and stop investing in that one and let that one just sit, and then you focus on something else that now aligns. Like it's not a tattoo, like it's not forever. Well, it's not a child, I should say, because we can get rid of tattoos these days.
Yeah, I've still got mine. Don't worry about that. Yeah, so I just Googled it then. I should have known this, but Beta Shares Direct, it's $10 to start. Raise is like, I think it's virtually nothing you can start with. Sharesies is like 1 cent. So these are small amounts, but they're big platforms. Perla, they have Perla Micro, which is tiny. ComSec Pocket is like $50. Then if we move into the fully fledged, quote unquote, like the fully fledged brokerage accounts, you've got $500 for the main ComSec one, the main Self-Wealth one. I don't know about Stake, but I think it's $500. And then you can go at another level again. Like with our investment platform, Gem, we say $20,000 is the recommended minimum. It doesn't have to be, but we recommend that. And so there's all different things. And I like your point because I have a Raise account, which I use for booking hotels as well as investing. I have a Perla account, and I even have some of my shares still in ComSec because it doesn't cost me anything to just keep them there, so I may as well just keep them there. So yeah, it's whatever floats your boat really in terms of user experience.
Yeah,
and
maybe you do
cost.
have a couple like you've got. Like I use self-wealth, but I wait till I've got parcels big enough to pay into my like niece and nephews and stuff accounts. But yeah, if I wanted to start doing like a roundup or something for my own, I would open a different one and have two going.
Yeah.
It's more admin, but you just have to find what works for you, and only you will know that when you work out your budget and what you're going to be putting in how often. But I think, yeah, it's just get started, pick one based on the colors that you like, and when you know more, change. Yeah.
Yep, I like it. And we've had some great comments on Instagram and TikTok about this lately. And some people have been writing in to say, I just got started. I just picked one and went with it, and then I changed, and that's cool too. So do that. So we've got two more questions here. Quick one is from Snackson. Hey, Gemma and Owen. My first listen to your podcast this week. Enjoyed it and learned a bunch. Thanks. I'm 54. My wife is 11 years younger, and we have two young boys, 5 and 8. I'm in a corporate job. My wife runs her own business. As I head towards retirement in the next decade, my wife is still pushing her business along. We'll still be pushing her business along. And basically, they've said a few different things. It feels like we need a very broad financial plan with schooling and that sort of stuff. I battle with myself about contributing extra to super versus mortgage versus diversification. How do they approach planning, Gemma? So they're just like, it's just a general question. Like you've got some PAYG, family, a business that they're running. What is the first step?
Yeah. So I think so you know what I'm going to say, that they are in the perfect position to get financial advice, but what that advice should look like and what they can be doing themselves is getting really clear on their goals and their priorities. Like, what do the holidays look like? What does the schooling look like? When does that, like, is that for the next 5 years? And then will they have more? So like I've been mapping out how goals and cash flow and needs kind of change over this period. And that's what, a financial planner can help you with, or you could be doing it yourself. Just getting really clear on what you want life to look like and how it's going to adapt as the kids get older. But yeah, just kind of getting clear on your goals and your cash flow. And then that can really determine what you end up doing in terms of paying off debt, contributing to super. Like you might work out based on the kids' ages, if they're going to private school or whatever, there might not be any surplus for 5 years, or you might be focused on something else. And then you might go, right, well, we know at X milestone, we can change our strategy. Like that, I'd kind of be breaking it up into sections based on like expected plans, goals, cash flow at each time. But yeah, you can absolutely do this yourself. I get, like, you don't need a financial advisor to do that for you. Where they could help is they could be, stress testing what you're doing and saying, well, actually super's a priority or mortgage is a priority, and helping you with that. But if you're doing it yourself, I would sit down with your wife and kind of map out what in whatever chunks, 5 years or whatever, how does life look? And yeah, if something is a priority but it doesn't fit in right now, when is the soonest it can fit in, like extra mortgage payments, money to super?
And I think that's kind of the big phases. And as kids go through initial schooling, depending if they're private or public schools, it's a big cost, and it keeps people in jobs they don't really like. If the parents are just facing the grueling, private school bill every year, it does change things dramatically at that stage of life. But after that, kids have, moved on to uni or gone into a job or an occupation, done whatever they wanted. It does relieve a lot of that strain, and you can start to supercharge your super. You may not have been able to do that in the earlier days. So these are examples. Another thing is, like, for business owners in particular, it is trickier, and getting financial advisors who understand the kind of the stress and the pressure of running a business. I know I would like a financial advisor who can just relate to that. It doesn't have to be a business owner themselves, but just relate to it. It's really important. The other thing here that they said, which is a bit of fun, I might add on, they say, I run a few income-making side gigs more for fun than the cash, like playing in a cover band. I love that. Having multiple sources of income is a great way to become a millionaire, according to the IRS in the US. And so have those multiple sources of income, and have a bit of fun while you do it. That's a great approach. And just being proactive is wonderful too. So great question, Snackson. Final question comes from two Mouseketeers. It is. My husband and I are in our mid-40s and are renovating 2 homes, at once, for profit, they say. We are finally in a position to buy our dream home. We would like to pay for this home completely in 20 years. They say, however, in the event we can't, can we apply a reverse mortgage on the home after retirement? That's a big question. Or is it better to pay off the mortgage completely? We have no children and want to maximize our financial gain. Any advice will be amazing. I might just insert a bit of a narrator's voice before this one, Gem, in that this, again, I know you're probably going to say financial advice. We've had a lot of parents write in today, which is somewhat unique. It's literally, it seems like everyone, except for maybe the getting started investing one, is not thinking about kids in a family setting. But it's a good theme we have for today's show because we've been speaking about it so much lately. So this person, or these people, I should say, there's two of them, they're going to buy their dream home. It's very common that people put a lot of money into one big thing called their home, Gem, but that then can create some opportunities, we'll say, when people move into passive income mode. Thoughts?
Yeah, so I have some assumptions with this message. So I'm assuming that they mean they're renovating these two and they're going to sell them and then buy the dream home, and there's going to be a shortfall. So they're still going to have a mortgage. So that's what I was kind of thinking. I think if it's the dream home and you're going to be there forever, my preference would be to be paying off that mortgage as much as reasonable that you can still be doing all the things that you want. If it was my dream home, I'd be trying to smash out that mortgage before retirement. But if there was a little bit left, it might be that your super can then cover that, or other investments that you've been doing or whatever. So you need to model out some scenarios. Where's super going to be? Where investments are going to be? What the debt might look like at that time if you fall short of the goal. And then you can see, well, do those other assets support you, and can you pay off that debt, or is the debt going to remain? But to get to the reverse mortgage part, so a reverse mortgage traditionally is you own your home, you're retired, you're much older, and you have no debt, but you don't have enough money to live off. And so you go to the bank and say, hey, we're out of super, we're living off the age pension kind of thing. We've got all this equity in our home. Can you give us a loan against our home, and we'll take the cash and we'll invest it, or we'll live off it, whatever. It's not really that you've just got to retirement and still have some mortgage left. Lots of people go into retirement, still have a mortgage left, and they decide, to either pay it off a lump sum with other things they've got going on. They decide to downsize, or they decide to just keep making the repayments out of their cash flow, out of their whatever else they've got going on. So you don't have to pay off your debt when you get to retirement, but it doesn't turn into a reverse mortgage. That's a totally different thing. I'm sure you can get to a point, if you still have debt, that you could turn it into a reverse mortgage, but they are very complicated. They're very expensive. You have to get financial and legal advice. But I think their situation, the reverse mortgage is very different and maybe that just might be a miscommunication with language, but yeah, reverse mortgage is, imagine, much older, tapping into your equity because you need live. I think these people are just going to have some of their mortgage left, and they could jump on a calculator and see what that might be at their planned retirement, and then see if they're going to have enough in super and other assets to cover that, or cash flow to just maintain it and keep paying it.
I think this is a big question for a lot of people that listen to the show, because a lot of us listening will have the majority of our wealth in our property, and then there's like a secondary camp that have the majority of our wealth in super, and people become really focused on just super. And then there's probably like a smaller, lesser, like in terms of number of listeners and viewers that would be in this camp. But a lot of us, like myself, have the majority of our wealth, if not like nearly all of it, in our business. And so there's often times in life you can continue on this kind of inertia journey because you've got a goal, because you've got a habit, and you end up with something big and then a lot of little things around it. Whereas I think as you get closer to retirement, you want all of that to become much more balanced. And so just being mindful that, yes, there's a dream home, and yes, that's a very big emotional thing, but maybe it's a case of, can we spread our eggs a little bit, or start to sow the seeds for those other things over the next 20 years. For example, if you jumped on one of those calculators, like a compound interest calculator, a super retirement planning calculator, and you think, well, we're in good jobs, should we be paying off the mortgage? You can use the loan repayments calculators for that. Or should we be allocating a little bit more in our pay to super? Maybe it's an extra $100 a week. And that could have significant benefits over a 20-year time horizon because your super is taxed at a lower rate than your salary and your investments outside of super. And then you could potentially use that at 65 to pay off the mortgage, as opposed to trying something different. Don't get confused with reverse mortgages. I often find them very late in life, 70s, 80s, maybe even beyond, who knows. But
and they can be really tricky
60.
to get. They can be really difficult to get. It's much easier when you don't have the complications of children and things. But yeah, I don't think that would be a great backup plan if they've paid off their mortgage and then they run out of money. You could consider that because they're going to own this home that they want to be in. So it's definitely an option, but I don't think it needs to be the focus right now. I think, they need to have a plan on paying down the debt versus what their investments are going to get to, because even if they have some debt at retirement, they could maintain it by making sure they've got enough cash flow, or they could use those investments or super to pay it down potentially.
Yeah, and final comment on this is it is perfectly normal that people have a mortgage leading into retirement. If you're listening to this, we might share stories of people that got a lot of money and you think, oh, well, wouldn't that be nice? A lot of people get overwhelmed. You've gone through the ringer with kids for whatever reason. You've gone through that process, or maybe you haven't had kids and you just aren't in the situation that you want to be in and you think, oh, I would have liked to have been debt-free by this stage. Oftentimes, you'll be amazed what you can achieve in a 5-year period, or 10-year period is even better, but a 5-year period in preparation for retirement. It's actually incredible what people pull off. And so don't be disheartened if you get to that point where you think, oh, I've got to live a mortgage. There are many options. If we go back to the previous question, maybe you get a gig in a cover band and you earn enough just to pay that little bit of mortgage and you love it anyway, so it doesn't matter. But that is a great question. And we've got a lot more that have been sent in this week, which we'll get to next week. If you do want to get your question on the show, it is so easy. You just head to the podcast player in front of you if you're listening, or if you're watching on YouTube, just jump into the YouTube description there. And there's a link that says ask a question, or you can just head to a Rask website. Any of them will do. Head down to the footer. That's the bottom of the website. It says ask a question. Just select the Australian Finance Podcast. And we would love to have your question on the show. If you sent in a question to Mouseketeers, Snacks and Private School, or now that was more feedback, thank you very much. Even Spider-Man, Barney Stinson, Tim Ferriss Wheel, and Beryl Streep, write into us and claim your free Value Investor Program. It's a course. It's a bit more technical. It's normally $499, but it's yours free because you sent in a question. Just write into us on the website. Just head to the Rask website. There's a little support widget down the bottom right-hand corner. Click on that and get in contact. Gem, this has been heaps of fun. Lots of fun. Always good to chat. I know you've got a lot of money coaching and a lot of financial advice stuff you want to work on, but we really do appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
No worries. I'm very impressed with the questions that are coming in. So looking forward to what they look like next week.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.